Hello and welcome to episode number 6 of Chel Squared. I'm your host, Andrew Chelney, and oh boy, do we have an episode and a half for you today. Joining us on the show, broadcasting extraordinaire of the National Hockey League, Bob Bender, to talk to us about broadcasting during the league, during the season, during the summer as well, what goes into planning and the like. As you know, in the NHL, for players and employees, there is no off season. Bob, how are you doing today?
Andrew Chelney, what a pleasure. I'm doing just fine. I'm looking forward to our conversation. Thanks for having me. And, I do have a little lettuce on the Yankees game, so I'd like to speed this along a bit. You know I'm a wagerer. But no, absolute pleasure. Fire away. Looking forward to it. And time is yours.
Bob hired me as his intern last summer. I worked with him in the broadcasting department. I mean, I can't put into words how thankful and grateful I am for that experience. I mean, it was so much fun to be a part of that team and and learn from you and to learn from everybody else. And it was not only an experience that I'll never forget, but I've learned so much from those couple of months that I feel like I've carried over into just the way that I operate now in more aspects than one.
Well, that's always good to hear. I mean, I think the NHL and our internship program, and of course in the broadcasting department, we take pride in having the interns come in and get some real life experience, have a little fun along the way. And as I say to every intern that comes in, the experience is really what they make of it. And I think you sort of took the bull by the horns and wanted to get involved with every little aspect of the internship. So I think you took a lot out of it, and it's nice to hear that. I think, again, our internship program at the NHL, we do take pride in having the interns come in and come out with a positive experience. So it's nice of you to say that.
I had a blast doing it. It was I can't even find the right adjective. It was an incredible experience all around. It was phenomenal for sure.
Well, again, that warms the cockles of my heart, Andrew. I hope you had a little fun along the way, also. And again, if you didn't bring something to the table during your few months at the NHL, I'm not sure I'd jump on this podcast with you. But again, happy to be here. Time is yours. Fire away. Yankee game is on. Just another reminder.
All right. Well, the Yankees got Hap and they got Britain, so they're looking good. Chuck Caton off the top here, 39-year veteran with the Hartford Whalers and the Carolina Hurricanes, got fired a few days ago. The Hurricanes said he was making a six-figure salary and he was averaging less than 2,000 listeners per game. What do you think about that move, and what about his style of broadcasting made him so great, do you think?
Well, you used the term fired, and I would use the term mutually part ways. The new owner of the Carolina Hurricanes, in contract negotiations, the offer was made to Chuck K. Chuck K, well within his rights to turn down the contract offer, and they part ways, and that's the way it ended. I don't want to necessarily say he was fired, but Chuck K, listen, you said it, 39 years. Started with the Hartford Whalers. When the Hurricanes went to Carolina, he followed. They won a Stanley Cup in Carolina. Chuck K, one of the greatest guys in the business. You could ask so many people, broadcasters, production folks. He was always willing to lend a hand. And you could always judge a person by how much help they're willing to provide if they get nothing out of it. And he was always, in my experiences with him and many others' experiences with him, he was always willing to help out, and not much to gain by him helping out, but always would listen, would provide assistance, insight, have conversation, friendly conversation. So I do think it's a loss for the NHL. He's in the Hall of Fame. You don't get to the Hall of Fame by being a run-of-the-mill broadcaster, and Chuck K, certainly not run-of-the-mill. What made him special was the way he connected to the audience for so many years in Hartford with the Whalers and then going to Carolina with the Hurricanes. He was able to connect to the audience And he told the truth. I mean, he wasn't going to sugarcoat anything. You get a lot of homers sometimes where there's a rooting interest for the team. He wasn't that way. He would say it as it was, and if he was saying it, it was the truth. Really one of the pioneers of pronunciation in the NHL, took a lot of pride in getting these players' pronunciations, their names correct, and took the time, along with Doc Emmerich and a lot of the other great NHL announcers, to speak with the players and make sure that their last names were properly pronounced as well as their first names. And again, a bit of a loss for the NHL. I think Chuck K, I'm not sure that this will be the end for Chuck K. I think there's some opportunities on the national radio side. Of course, there's a new franchise in Seattle coming down the pipe likely. So hopefully it's not the end for Chuck K. Hopefully there's some other opportunities down the line for him. And we haven't heard the last of him. But again, a bit of a loss, but certainly understand the dynamic with the new owner coming in and the scenario with the amount of listeners that they were claiming to have on the radio. You never like to see this scenario play out the way it has in Carolina. But it's one of those things where I think Chuck K is gracious. He's moving on. It's the owner's decision. And again, hopefully it's not the last time we hear from him.
What are the pros and cons to doing a simulcast? Because obviously, it's easier in a sense because you have one pair in Tripp and John doing both at the same time. But is there also kind of this void of no legitimate radio play-by-play? What are the positives and negatives to doing just one team for both?
Well, I think the positive is an economical positive, where you're killing two birds with one stone. Essentially, you have the TV side, which is also duplicated on the radio side. The negative is, TV and radio broadcasts are very different, and I think it behooves franchises to have both a TV broadcaster and a radio broadcast team. In this case, in Carolina, they've obviously struggled for many, many years here. According to what the team is putting out, the listenership is down in Carolina. So economically, it may make sense for this franchise, but in certain markets like New York, Montreal, Chicago, some of the bigger markets, Los Angeles, I don't necessarily think that this is a direction that a club would choose to go, just because connecting with your fans, both on the radio and TV, and having separate broadcast teams, I think certainly behooves the connection you have with the audience, with the fan base. And I think there's certain rights fees that go along with radio broadcasts. A station would pay a certain amount of money to the club to have a radio broadcast on the station, sponsorship opportunities and whatnot. Every case is different with every club. This is the route Carolina chooses to go. As I said, different styles on the TV and radio. But John Forsland, I think his TV call will translate very, very well on the radio side. I think you'll be able to get the picture and know what is happening with John Forsland's call. He's that good. He's that professional. He's that buttoned up. And he's truly one of the great talents in NHL broadcasting. So, like I said, it depends on every situation which way you want to go. This is what they're doing in Carolina. I'll embrace it, and I certainly understand it. But again, it's difficult. It's a difficult pill to swallow when you have a Hall of Fame radio broadcaster, 39 plus years of service, and the relationship with the club ends in this fashion. Not the best, most warm story to tell.
You're absolutely right on all accounts. I mean, you mentioned Los Angeles. You have Alex Foss now, who replaced Bob Miller. There's kind of this quote-unquote youth movement going on in terms of play-by-play broadcasters, because you have Alex Foss now in Los Angeles. You have Brendan Burke in New York replacing Howie Rose. What about them specifically makes listening to their broadcast so enjoyable? What fresh viewpoint or perspective do you think they bring to the table that really, they might be young, but they don't sound young?
No, both of those guys, Alex and Brendan with the Islanders, they both sound like veteran, longtime television broadcasters. And I think the thing that stands out the most. And we're seeing it in all of sports. In baseball, you have Joe Davis taking over for Vin Scully and calling national college football games as well as national Major League Baseball games on Fox. I think these young guys come in and they are equipped from the jump, and they sound like veteran broadcasters. They're dialed in. It takes a lot of reps. It takes a lot of talent. And these are guys that have spent many, 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 many years honing their craft. And I think they start at a very young age, and it translates when they get to the NHL level, both Brendan and Alex, who come in young, fresh, and I don't think either of those broadcasts have missed a beat. I mean, Bob Miller is one of the greats, and it's a very tough spot to fill for Alex, but I think Alex has come in very admirably, ingratiated himself with the audience, and does a very, very nice job calling a hockey game. And I would say the same for Brendan coming in and filling the shoes of Howie Rose, who was calling the Islanders on TV for many, many years.
I absolutely agree with that. But they do not call games in the summer because there's no games going on in the summer, but the NHL doesn't take days off. So what does the NHL do during the summer? What are your biggest responsibilities? What's the biggest thing on your plate right now?
Well, that's a question I get from a lot of my friends and people outside of the league is there's no games happening. So what essentially are you doing in the office working on a regular basis during the months of July and early August? And there's a lot going on. And I think our tentpole events, the Winter Classic, Stadium Series, All-Star Game, those three events right there require a lot of planning and surveying of buildings. And I'll just speak to the Winter Classic. We had a survey in South Bend just a few weeks ago, and this is going to be a big broadcast for NBC. Of course, they have a natural partnership with Notre Dame as they do all their football games for many, many years. But surveys, looking at buildings, figuring out camera positions, field design, not necessarily something that the broadcast department has a lot of input on, but how the field design will come into place and what sort of things does NBC want to integrate into their broadcast with the field design. Of course, they bring their pregame, intermission, postgame set, host position, we call it, to these outdoor events. So sight lines, backdrop, where do they want people? Do they want to have people by the grotto? Do they want to have people in this corner where you can get a beautiful view of Touchdown Jesus? So we usually make a few visits to the site, survey the site, figure out camera positions, announce positions, camera platforms, camera builds, host position builds, and that happens for, like I said, All-Star Game where you have three rights holders in there, TVA, French-Canadian, Sportsnet, Canadian, NBC. They'll all be at the SAP Center in San Jose. So that takes a lot of surveying and figuring out each position, where cameras are going, where host positions are going. And it's a very collaborative sort of exercise because unlike the NFL and unlike other sports, we have multiple rights holders doing one game. So we all have to get on the same page, collaborate, and figure out what is best for each network. And on top of that, as you may or may not know, we have 2 games in China, and we have 5 games in Europe in September and October. And the NHL is responsible for producing a world feed for all of these broadcasts. So there's a lot of time spent working with the international rights holders as well as hiring announcers and working with networks to see where these games are going to air, NHL Network included, NBC, Sportsnet in Canada, the local rights holders. So 2 games in China, 1 in Bern, Switzerland, 1 in Cologne, Germany, 1 in Gothenburg, Sweden, and 2 in Helsinki, Finland. So that requires a lot of time and communication with multiple parties to make sure that the world feed is produced, as well as any unilateral broadcast that the local rights holders or other broadcasters would want to put on from these international games. So as much as I'd like the summer to be relaxing, and we do get a little bit of a breather, of course, I think it's important to take that breather, but it's a busy summer, and the summers have gotten busier and busier since I've been at the NHL. There's a lot to get through, and a lot of work to be done. And luckily, we have a great department and really a great staff in the NHL where there's a collaborative working together and teamwork to sort of pull off these tentpole events as well as these international games that can be a bear at times.
Absolutely. Do you consider the World Feeds probably the most difficult assignment of the year, or is there perhaps like a normal game that might be difficult for a different reason, or is there what's the most challenging event of the year for you?
Well, for me personally, and I think many in the department would sort of echo the same sentiments. I don't think every event, and this is why the position is so wonderful, is different, and every day is different, and new challenges come up and new solutions need to be found out. So it's a very exciting position from that sense. It's not mundane, and it's certainly not turnkey for every event. But the NHL draft, and I think others in my department would say the same, the NHL draft could be a bit of a planning bear with the three rights holders, as I mentioned, NBC, Sportsnet, and it's not your typical game. It's almost a business meeting with a television show around it. The World Feeds, as I said, they're challenging, but for different reasons. We're working with different international parties, which requires communication, overseas communication, lots of conference calls. Sometimes there's a bit of a gap with communicating with the language barrier. And that's what makes those international games challenging. And it's also difficult because we can't take so many trips overseas to survey these buildings and to work through some of the issues that we come across, such as announce positions, camera positions, between the bench positions. These rinks are different. Of course, these rinks are set for international ice. We bring it down for NHL size standard ice. So there's all different events that are challenging. But yes, the World Feeds that we're putting together this summer, they're like I said, they can be a bit of a bear, but it's a lot of fun. It's very rewarding, and I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Absolutely. I mean, it sounds like a blast. You get to visit the places, I'm assuming. Just be a part of the game from a technical perspective, and it sounds incredible. I mean, what besides just the sport of hockey being an interesting sport to watch, what do you think is the biggest advantage of broadcasting the sport of hockey? I mean, it's one of the biggest advantages obviously is the sport itself because it is so fast. Basketball is slower, football is slower, baseball is slower because there's stoppages and continuations. Hockey has this unique angle of continuity that happens much less frequently in if at all in all the major sports. So what's the technical advantage of broadcasting a hockey game versus another sport?
A technical advantage of broadcasting a hockey game over another sport, I would say the advantage that the NHL has right now, and why it's a game that continues to grow, and that I think younger people are gravitating to more and more, is the pace of play. If you take a look at what our total game times are for a hockey game, it's roughly around 2.5 hours, and that's remained consistent for quite a few years. So NBA, NFL, Major League Baseball, they're all battling pace of play issues. The NHL has remained pretty consistent, and I think that's a big advantage for us and something that we have embraced. And we haven't added additional commercial breaks, I should say. We have our traditional under 14, under 10, under 6, and they're 90 seconds. And we try to get play started after goals, and there's not a lot of lingering around. And I think that that's something that fans have welcomed, fans enjoy, and I think going forward, it's almost like our ace in the hole. I think it's very important considering what's going on this day and age with all the noise and other entertainment options that sports fans have. The great thing about the NHL is it's 2.5 hours, puck drop, game over, and move on to the next event or the next item on the agenda on the schedule. And I think going forward, we'll continue to embrace that pace of play, always keep a close eye on it, And, listen, we hear from broadcasters all the time. They would like more time after goals to show replays and to show multiple angles. And, it's a balance. It's a balance that we are trying to strike the right balance. And I think we've done a good job doing that, because as much as we want to see so many multiple angles and replays and slow motion, replays, we also have to make sure play is moving along at a pace that is advantageous to the fans watching in the arena and the fans watching on television.
Right. I mean, one of the biggest qualms I have with football is, when a team scores a touchdown, right after that there's a long commercial. And then there's the punt return kick, and then there's another long commercial, which is something that you don't see in hockey. Well, you don't see in basically any other sport, but football in particular is a huge. I feel like that's a huge problem in football. Is just the touchdown, and then there's about 8 minutes or so of just nothing, which hockey I think just is great about that. If there's a goal, there's usually not, if at all, a commercial afterwards, which not only speeds the game along for the players involved, but also just for everyone watching, because you're not distracted by your phone or by what's going on in the other room if you're watching on TV or whatever. It's goals scored. All right, let's continue the action. Let's move the pace, which is something that I really, really do appreciate about the way the NHL does broadcasting.
Well, you'll never see a commercial break after a goal. That's something that is not in place. We don't allow the networks to do it. We feel taking commercial breaks after a goal, and our hockey operations would agree with this. It sort of takes the momentum away from the team scoring the goal. So if there's a goal scored, you will never see a commercial directly after a goal. In fact, I don't want to get too insider baseball on you, but we take a break, whistle under 14-minute mark. And if there's a goal scored, say at 13:30, of course, play stops, but we're not taking a commercial there. We are letting play continue, and then would go to commercial after or at the next whistle after the goal. So I think from that sense, we wouldn't be in the same scenario as the NFL, and I think that will remain, because I think it's important not only from a competitive standpoint and with hockey operations. I also think it's important in arena to kill the momentum after a goal like that, and the atmosphere just doesn't make sense for our sport.
I absolutely agree with you. I mean, that's something that I personally enjoy as someone that's a complete hockey nerd, and I know the vast majority of people, I mean, if not everybody, loves that as well. I mean, in terms of bringing the sport to the fans on TV, the cameras are awesome. I really do like the cameras. You have almost a front row seat to the action. The cameras, right next to the corner boards are also great, especially when there's a scrum in that corner or a battle for the puck or something along those lines. You cut to that camera and you see the fabric on the jersey, the sweat on the player. You really, really get into it, and I love that a lot. What do you think, in your opinion, can the NHL do better to show the game on TV? Maybe even more behind the net cams, helmet cams, maybe. What do you think the NHL can do?
Well, I think we are constantly always looking for different ways to bring the game to television audiences. Of course, like I said earlier, you're always looking to strike the right balance. You had mentioned helmet cams. We have utilized referee helmet cams. Hockey Night in Canada on Sportsnet utilizes it very much. We also have used it in all-star games. I think that offers a unique perspective. One of the things that we're doing, an initiative that's happening in the league, where we have installed in most NHL buildings cameras built into the dasher boards behind each goal. We call it an ankle cam, which sort of gives you that low angle perspective right behind the goal, which is great for replays, goals scored, looks on face-offs in the defensive and offensive zones, and really, really, really like that look. And proud to say that we've worked with buildings to make sure, and television networks, to make sure that those camera positions are available for broadcaster use. And it's a bit of a process, cutting holes into the dasher boards, making sure they're not interfering with sponsorships on the boards. But at the end of the day, I think the look you get from those cameras, and I think you'll see it more and more often now that these positions are in more and more buildings, I think the looks you get are worth it. One of the things I like are the robotic cameras, of course, but in particular, I love when directors, during a power play and the puck is in the zone, the offensive zone for quite some time, will go to the behind the net look on the robotic camera behind the net there and be able to follow the power play from that angle, which is sort of the angle that the goalie sees, and be able to see how these teams work the power play and the passing lane and the shooting lanes. Really enjoy when directors go to that look for a prolonged amount of time during the power play. Other sort of technology items that we've tinkered with and experimented with, well, of course, the All-Star game. We utilized the JITA cam, jib in the air, and provided beautiful angles to the television audience. But again, when I speak to striking the right balance, you have to remember that JITA cam was a bit of an eyesore in the arena, and you also have to take into account how does it look to the fans in the arena. We don't want to take away the experience of the fans there watching the game in-house. So, again, looks beautiful. We use it in the All-Star game. Is it something we'll see in regular season games? I think we're a bit ways away from that. But, again, we're always pushing the limits, and we're always trying to figure out what can be implemented regularly in the broadcast, making sure that the right balance is struck where we're not ruining the experience for people in arena, and we're providing television audience with unique, different sorts of angles and a different experience.
Absolutely. At Syracuse, I live with 5 other guys in this, I guess you could call it a quasi-frat house. And most of us are hockey fans, so we always have hockey on TV, on multiple TVs around the house. We're always watching. We also have a lot of people over sometimes, and hockey's always on. But one of the biggest issues that I hear from people that don't necessarily have either watched a lot of hockey or know about hockey is I can never see the puck. So has the league? I know the league has tried some of that, like a halo effect in the All-Star game, like 15 years ago or something like that. It obviously didn't stick. But is there a way to show the puck better? Do you think without resorting to special effects?
Andrew, are you watching hockey on a high-definition television?
Yes, we are.
Okay, well, that's the first step. Hockey needs to be consumed on a high-definition television. Hopefully, the size of your TV is 32 inches or greater. I would hope that's the case for 5 guys living in a frat house in Syracuse, but correct me if I'm wrong.
No, we do have big TVs. I mean, I call it a quasi frat house. We're not in. I'm not in a frat personally, but I mean, it's 6 guys in a house. I mean, it's basically a frat house. We know where the puck is because we follow hockey. But I've heard from people that have been in the house, people that have sort of watched hockey as it was on, and the qualm sometimes that I hear is, oh, I don't know where the puck is. I can't see the puck. I can't follow the puck. Is that just their problem, or is that something that the NHL is looking into?
Well, I mean, listen, you brought it up. Fox many, many years ago, the glow puck, I don't think we're ever going to go back to that sort of technology. I think what it is now is what it's going to be. And listen, hockey is a fast sport. I think it takes a certain attentiveness and ability to sort of follow the puck. I think if you know the sport, you're able to follow the puck. Is it an issue for new fans? I could see how it could be an issue for new fans. Is it an issue for older fans where their eyesight is struggling as they get older? I could see that being an issue. I just don't know if the juice is worth the squeeze when you talk about a glow puck or you talk about highlighting the puck using technology to make sure that it's easier to follow. I think what we saw with the Fox glow puck is it really annoyed the hardcore hockey fans, and I think we need to do our best to make sure we're not alienating our base, the hardcore hockey fan that knows where the puck is, that is able to follow the puck, that knows the sport and can understand where the puck may go, anticipate where the puck may go. I can understand how it's an issue for new fans and older fans, but I just don't see us anytime soon using technology or glowing the puck up or accentuating the look of the puck to help follow it on TV.
That's totally understandable. I mean, again, it's one of those things where if you even semi understand the game of hockey, you can follow along pretty well if you have good eyesight. But for new fans, I've heard this qualm for quite a while, but I totally get your point as well. It's one of those things where the more you watch and the more you pay attention in a way, the easier it'll be to track the puck for sure. It's just one of those things that you develop an eye for.
Andrew, I think you're right. What I would tell the younger fans is just keep on watching. If you're having issues following the puck, keep watching the sport, keep learning about the sport, and I think you'll have an easier time following the puck and anticipating where the puck may go. For older fans, not sure what to say. I know at some point I'll get there. I'll be 75, 80 years old, and I'm probably going to have a tough time following the puck. Luckily, I'm a few years away from that, but maybe schedule an appointment with the optometrist and upgrade your glasses, or potentially look into some LASIK surgery. I'm not sure. Get a bigger television screen. But I do feel their pain. I can understand how that could be an issue if your eyesight is waning and you're having an issue following the puck. Luckily, if you're that old and you're watching hockey or a hardcore fan, we're lucky to have you. We want to keep having you as a fan, and just enjoy the sport as best you can.
Absolutely. What's your personal, I guess, wish list for ideas that you hope or want to see one day in the future of NHL broadcasting? Not necessarily what you have in the works or what you've talked about, but just if you personally were to create a wish list of things that you want to implement sometime down the road, what would they be?
Well, I think what I hear from so many fans, and what I would love to see, because we use it in the outdoor games, I would love to see Skycam be used in all arenas. I understand it's a bit tricky and it's a bit challenging depending on what arena you're in. Of course, it's used in Vancouver. It works in that arena. We've tested it in arenas, Washington, D.C., Chicago, and unfortunately you have to, again, like I said earlier, it takes away from the experience. What we've heard from fans in the arena is that it could be a bit distracting and sort of be an impediment to following the game in the arena. I would hope someday, I'm not saying next year, the year after, even 5 years, but I would like to see more arenas be equipped with Skycam and have it be a look that networks, both regionally and nationally, can utilize. Something that's a little bit more, down the line, or maybe it's personal to me. I would love for the viewer at home to have access and control of all the cameras that the TV trucks have on site, meaning basically you're watching the game and you're your own director, and you can cut around to any camera that a television truck has access to. And you can watch the sport from any perspective that you'd like. I think that would be something that would be more on the NHL Game Center app, NHL.tv, watching on your phone, watching on your tablet. But I would really love access to not only the overheads and the NHL-owned cameras, but every camera that television network has access to. So you can watch the game. If the TV network is isolating Patrick Kane, you could watch Patrick Kane and see where he is and what he's doing, almost like a second screen experience. I would also love every arena to have sort of the all 12 look, where you could see everyone on the ice from a high overhead perspective, sort of what you would get from a video game. I think watching plays develop and seeing how plays develop, that would be something, as someone who watches a sport on TV, I think that would be something that I would really enjoy. I can't speak to other fans what they would enjoy, but sort of being my own director and directing my experience whether it's on a second screen or a main screen, would be something that I would really enjoy, I think, as a fan of hockey and watching it on TV.
Absolutely. For the player cams, I know the fancy stats community would absolutely go bonkers over that. That they would love that idea for sure, because it's tough tracking players as it is, because the analytics aren't readily available. The MLB loves their analytics, the NBA loves their analytics, the NFL loves their analytics. Hockey, not quite. But I know the fancy stats community would absolutely love individual cams like that, like you just mentioned. And also, what do you think about, you mentioned the behind the net cam, and that's a great angle to see what the goalie's looking at, especially during a power play or something like that. What do you think about maybe like a stanchion cam, where near the blue line, so you can see what the players in the offensive zone can see from their perspective. So the next time when a fan sees that angle on TV and they go to a game, they don't scream shoot when there's a guy right in front of them. They kind of see, oh, there's a guy right in front, maybe he shouldn't shoot the puck.
Well, we've tested and have looked at cameras. We have a center ice robo right on the red line, and we've tested and looked at how it would be if we had 3 robotic cameras, so one at the center ice position and then one a little bit before the blue line in the neutral zone, or 2, I would say, on each blue line. And it's definitely an interesting look and something that we're looking at closely, and it's something that I think provides multiple angles that are beneficial to the TV viewers. I don't know how close we are to getting that in every rink. Again, these things come at a cost, and it's up to the television broadcaster. If they think the look is worth it, they'll spend the money on the RoboCam. But again, we've looked at cameras in those positions, and we do think that it adds a nice element, a different perspective for the television audience, for sure.
One quick question, Bob, about the NHL as a whole. NHL Stanley Cup Final 2019 predictions. What are yours?
Well, predictions. I always like to throw a future bet on multiple sports, but I can't do that with the NHL. So, I'll just I'll throw out some teams that I think will be right in the mix next year. I think the Predators, unfortunately, the way their postseason ended, of course, President's Trophy winners, I think they're right there. I like what Colorado did last year, and I think they'll improve. As far as a Stanley Cup Final prediction, boy, we're in July right now, heading into August. You could ask me that in October. I'll probably have a better answer for you. But I mean, let's just for giggles and fun. So out of the West, I'll give you the Predators, and then in the East, I like Tampa Bay. I also think the Devils are going to be right there. But I think Tampa Bay next year. I know they had a rough out this year in the East. Again, one of the great things about this sport is that a lot of teams are in the mix, and we have a lot of turnover with teams getting in the playoffs, teams not getting in the playoffs. But listen, I'll say Tampa Bay out of the East, and out of the West, the Nashville Predators. How about that? Does that work for you, Chel? Put me on the spot like that?
That does work. I mean, you mentioned the Devils, which is a surprising team to name, but I mean that definitely works. And one more quick thing here, I'm interning for Shine On Sports on Mad Dog Radio on Sirius XM, and today Adam wasn't in, so Jason Goff, who does radio on NBA radio on Sirius and does some work in Chicago as well, he puts pineapple on his pizza. And Bob Stew, who's the producer, likes to go with the classic slice of cheese pizza. And Jason demolished him on that, said only children eat cheese pizza slices. And what are your thoughts on that, Bob? Because I almost lost it. I cannot believe someone who puts pineapple on their pizza made fun of someone who likes a classic New York slice of cheese pizza. I don't get it. I don't understand it. What do you think? What do you think of that?
Oh boy, you have me talking about pizza. I would say the guy to talk to about pizza would be one of the greats, Eric Dwyer, who is also in the NHL Broadcasting department and a great guy. He's a pizza connoisseur, and what he would tell you is that you always have to get the classic, regular, original slice, as he likes to call it, especially if it's the first trip to a new pizzeria. You order the original pie, the plain cheese. Jason Goff, I don't really know him all that well, but something tells me that he's the one that's a little off with the pineapple on the pizza and then ragging on someone who likes to get the original pie. That's all I'll say about that. But again, the real guy you should be asking about the pizza is Eric Dwyer, who fancies himself and really is just a pizza connoisseur and knows all the spots in Brooklyn, knows all the spots in Manhattan, knows all the spots. Anytime I'm traveling with him, in fact, I'll tell you a quick story. We're in Las Vegas, and Las Vegas is not well known for its pizza, as you can imagine. But we took a 45-minute trip off the strip to go try a slice of pizza in Summerlin, Las Vegas. I believe Summerlin, Las Vegas, and that was at the urging of Eric Dwyer. He cares about his pizza so much and goes on journeys and adventures to try different slices from all over the globe. So that's the guy you really should be asking this question to. But I think I channeled enough Eric Dwyer here, and I think that would be the answer he would give too. Original, plain pie. That's what you got to get. That's how you judge a pizza.
I really hope Eric agrees with that, because I mean, I love Eric. I don't know much about his pizza taste, but I'm sure you nailed it on the head. 45 minutes for a size of pizza in Las Vegas. I mean, that's I'm not sure if that's dedication or if that's crazy or if that's both, but I mean, that's astonishing. I mean,
that's commitment. And that's what Eric
sure.
Dwyer does when it comes to pizza. And I'm lucky it's with everything he does, but when it comes to pizza especially, just absolutely focused and committed. And as he would like to say, next level. He's next level with that sort of stuff.
Next level. I think putting pineapple on pizza should be illegal. I walking into a New York pizza shop, looking the pizza maker in the eyes, and with no expression, just looking at them and say, I want pineapple on that, I think it should be completely illegal. I'm going to call him a representative and hope he gets that into a law, because honestly, I think that's an atrocity. All right, Bob. I mean, as always, I'm so grateful that you came on the show and to talk a little bit, maybe a little inside baseball, but it's truly a unique angle to the world of the NHL, and it's just I'm really thankful to have you on. And this has been a absolute blast. And if you ever have a little bit of time in the future to come on again, I would absolutely love to have you on.
You got it, Andrew. Always a pleasure. Thanks for having me on. I'm really proud of you. You know, you're doing this. You're putting yourself out there. You're churning out content. And that's what I would tell any youngster. Just churn out the content. Put yourself out there. Try your best. Reps. You want to be a thoroughbred. It takes reps and practice. You could talk to Brendan Burke. You could talk to Alex Faust. You could talk to any of the guys broadcasting in any medium. It takes reps and practice, confidence and belief, and that's what you're doing with this podcast. And an absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me on. And I'm not sure your audience would agree, but anytime you need me to fill content, you want to talk wagering and other sports, whatever it is, man, let me know. I'm happy to join.
All right, Bob. As always, you're the best, and thank you so much for coming on.
You bet, Andrew. Have a good one, pal.
All right, that's Bob Bender for you. He's one of the best broadcasting managers around town, that's for sure. And that'll do it for this episode of Chel Squared. I'm Andrew Chelney, and that was Bob Bender, of course. Like us on Facebook. We have a Facebook page, Chel Squared. We're on Twitter, @Chel Squared. We're on SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, anywhere and everywhere that's not MySpace or MSN Messenger. We are on. We are available to listen. Please rate the show. Please subscribe to the show. Every time you rate the show, a puppy gets a hug and a treat from its owner. I don't make the rules. I'm just spreading knowledge. Thank you so much for listening, and I will talk to you again next week.